So today I'm going to talk about two things. One, about why we should use precise words, especially in politics, and then two, about human dignity and why it's a thing. So on Sunday I was driving and I was listening to NPR, and I had this interview with a guy who is basically he advocates for a what he calls a white ethno state, as in he believes that the racial tensions in America are so great that we're not going to overcome them, and the answer is to separate and have separate countries, which is pretty messed up. One of the terrifying things was he was just very calm and rational. He wasn't angry or yelling. So with that in mind, you could accurately say that he is racist, like he legitimately believes that a certain race is superior to others. However, using that term most people don't use it just as a descriptor. They use it as a way of dismissing a whole set of arguments. The thing with that is just dismissing him outright, though he's completely wrong, is not helpful because, one, it's not going to convince him. It's not going to convince his followers. And all it does is make me feel smug and superior that, like, look, I'm better than this guy. And I didn't actually do anything. So that's also not helpful. Yeah, we should be using our words precisely, especially now that the election is done. So a bit of a tangent, and then I'm going to come back. So C.S. Lewis, in the beginning of Mere Christianity, talks about that words are supposed to describe something. They're not really usually supposed to describe how I feel about the thing, unless I say I feel blank. So, for example, the word gentleman originally meant someone who had property and a coat of arms. It was a title of nobility. But now we mean gentleman to mean like, oh, he's courteous. The word has shifted. Or noble, like, used to mean someone of the nobility, and now it kind of means it's a certain sort of virtue, like, great bearing and whatever else. So the word is no longer a descriptor of a thing. It's a descriptor of how I feel about the thing. And so in that book, he's talking about how the word Christian should be a descriptor of a thing rather than, oh, that's not very Christian of you, which is describing how I feel about the thing. And so in the political discourse I've been seeing via social media, maybe discourse is too strong of a word, but the two words that are the primary offenders are hypocrite and bigot. They have a precise definition, but we're not using them as a precise definition usually. We're using it as a label to dismiss entire groups of people, and we're just using it as a fancy way of saying, you disagree with me, therefore you are a hypocrite or bigot, depending on which one you're using. So, what is a hypocrite? Basically, a hypocrite is someone who they'll say one thing but have a separate standard for themselves. So someone who says stealing is wrong, but really they mean you stealing is wrong, me stealing is okay. That is a hypocrite. Now let's say someone says stealing is wrong, they genuinely believe it, they steal, and then they accuse themselves of it. That's not a hypocrite in the strict definition of the word, because they would accuse others of stealing. They're also saying that they themselves are guilty. So that's admitting that there's a such thing as human weakness. Bigot is someone who disregards the views of others and won't consider their views at all. It's the opposite of what Aristotle said. It's the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. So a bigot does not necessarily describe a particular view, but does someone listen to contrary evidence? Now, you can listen to contrary evidence and still say, hey, you know what? I think you're wrong, and here's why. That's fine. But usually how those two words are used is to say, you disagree with me, therefore you're a bigot. And that's again, not helpful. So now that was the part on precision in words. We should, if we say, hey, this person's wrong, like the white ethno-state guy, we need to be able to say that your views are wrong, they're false, they're going to be bad for the country. Like, we need to say all of those things and mean it. If we say, oh, you're a racist, and dismiss him out of hand, he'll get more empowered, and it doesn't do what we're trying to do. So here's how I would answer him. I would talk about this thing called human dignity. That human dignity is not something that is bestowed on us. It's not something the government gives us. It's not something society gives us. It's not something our friends or family or our neighbors give us. It's not something we earn. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to be functional or utilitarian. It's based on who we are as people. Because we are human beings, we have human dignity. And because of that dignity, we deserve to be treated a certain way. So rights and duties are linked, by the way. So if someone has a duty for something, someone has a right to something, someone else has a duty to provide that thing. So we have certain rights as being human, as having that human dignity, and therefore we have a duty to each other to provide those rights. And the views that this man advocates are contrary to human dignity. They insist that a certain group of people has more dignity than another group of people. Now, in his case, it's based on race, but it could be based on class, economic thing, whether someone's born or preborn, as we see in the abortion argument, things of that kind. But regardless, this is contrary to human dignity and it cannot stand. And that's why we should be rejecting this man's views. So you see how you actually have to address like underlying assumptions in what he's saying. And another thing, so we've just been talking about why you shouldn't dismiss people out of hand with labels. That's against their dignity. That's beneath your dignity. You should not do that. You should not have that done to you. And so this is kind of like a call to arms, like let's be better at our discourse, especially on social media, but also in person, although in person tends to be easier to not be a jerk to people. So we're going to use words precisely. We want to mean what they mean. And if we say, I disagree, the way to say that is, I disagree, not you're a bigot. And then also keep with human dignity. So this is a bit of a longer video, but I think it's a bigger topic, especially in light of, the election last week and people's reactions to it. So there you go.